You're now watching B2B Vault, the Biz Podcast, hosted by Allen Kopelman, powered by Nationwide Payment Systems, the #1 solution for payment processing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of B2B Vault, the Biz Podcast, sponsored by Nationwide Payment Systems for all your payment processing needs. And today, we're joined on the show by Tyler Hockman from Four Enterprise. And we're going to jump into a discussion about what do you do with your website today? So you worry about Google, you worry about ChatGPT, or we're worrying about both. So in the whole world of search, what's going on, that's what we're going to jump into. So Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, so we started Four Enterprise. I started getting into the field of AI over a decade ago back at Stanford. But really started working in commercial grade AI about half a decade ago with Four Enterprise. And we set out to be what we call, architects of AI solutions and of AI use cases. And there's so much complexity around not only, what problems are best for AI to solve, but then how do you actually go about solving those problems? And, what is if you imagine it like a building and the AI is the appliances, right? It's everything you're going to use on your day-to-day, then everything else, the plumbing, the electrical, the scaffolding, the framework, the skeleton, all of that is what we do. And then we also do the use cases as well. But that's kind of how Four started is, how do we build the building of AI?
So when people are, I'm sure every business owner listening to this podcast now is sitting in their office and they're wondering, what do I do? How am I optimizing my website today? Am I optimizing for Google? Am I optimizing for the large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity? How am I going to show up there? You know, what's the, I don't know if there's an actual real solution, but, search has changed. I mean, I did a poll on LinkedIn asking people, where do you search? And it was about 50-50 to, I made a joke. I said, where do you search first? Google, ChatGPT or Claude or the yellow pages. Some people, what's the yellow pages? So
That's great.
dating myself. So tell us, give us a little overview on that.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And if you're asking yourself that question, you're probably already ahead of a lot of your competitors. Because I think the GEO, generative engine optimization, or AEO, answer engine optimization, versus SEO, search engine optimization, is right at the forefront of how do you market your business, and how do you stay relevant, to your customers and your clients. And so there's a number of different ways to do it. And I think asking ourselves that question, we actually set out to do case studies and literally build web pages and then see how we can get your LLMs and your various AI tools to go and look at those web pages and functionally rank those web pages ahead of competitors, so on and so forth. And it's fascinating. It is, I kind of geek out about it a little bit because these solutions range from everything, and we can get into them from, LLMs read language in a different way than we read language, right? Both from a human perspective, but also from the way we look at marketing content and ad content. And so there's a whole aspect of, designing and optimizing the web page for the way the LLM is going to read it itself. And then all the way to enriching your underlying content, because different than marketing and advertisement that involves a human, where we can get context outside of the Google search, right? Like the Google search is one component, and then you have word of mouth, you have, this whole real world ecosystem that supports what Google is. But in this case, the only thing that is going to be incorporated in the reason, an LLM chooses a web page versus the way you would choose a web page is based on what the LLM can, find on the internet. And so that it's such a broad, there's a couple cool techniques. It's a pretty broad range, and happy to go into all of them. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting problem.
Yeah, it's interesting when you go, like, I'll go on any of these. I mess around with all of them. I'll go on, I'll ask it, oh, what are the top 10 questions people are asking you about merchant services this week? So you don't know, how can you guess what somebody's going to type in to it could be a million different questions, right? What is someone going to type in? Oh, I want to buy a TV, and and agentic commerce is kind of sliding into everything too. Because when people, I know, like, I wanted to buy some headphones, and I did a video about it, and I recorded it, and I put it in Google, then I put it in ChatGPT, and ChatGPT did all the work. I didn't have to do any work, did all more work than Google gave me. It told me I asked it what was on sale, where could I get a good deal, who had the best deal, were there any refurb models available, all sorts of questions, and then it gave you the options. So it's pretty crazy, like, what the type of answer you can get from one versus the other. But now Google, the top of the page gives you a huge, the AI when they first started, I would say it was about an inch or two. Now it's pretty much like my whole laptop screen before you get to the paid people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great segue into, one of the most commonly used techniques that anyone can do really is A/B testing. And it's different than, it's different than how you would use Google, right? Because the way you can prompt Google itself had only so many different ways that it would, understand search context. I mean, that was in part what SEO was, right? Is like there's certain configurations of words that, will lead to certain pathways and then generate different web page rankings. GEO is so different because there is, like you said, so many different ways to prompt it. And so, but what an average, what a business owner without a super kind of technical sophistication can do is spend a day and try to prompt it all the different ways. Like
Right.
any way you can think of to ask, if you're talking to a friend and you want to get that friend to, you're going to ask them questions about what your business does and you want that friend to say your business, ask it a bunch of different ways. And what you'll start to see is the things that it's ranking the highest. And then the question becomes, how can I go and either A, copy those from a marketing perspective to get myself to rank higher, or B, are there other techniques that I can leverage? And we can go into a couple of those that will just, kind of allow me to rank higher as well.
Yeah, like, a lot of techniques I read about are, a lot of, putting up a lot of blogs, pillar pages, backlinking, which I don't know, there's pros and cons about backlinking, but what other things besides that, or were those things you were going to talk about?
Yeah, I think that definitely is one of them. It's for a lot of LLMs, it's a volume game. And it is distinctly different than SEO because again, like I was talking about, there's a whole human component to SEO, whereas for these, in GEO and these LLMs, they want to see a lot of volume. That's just like how the ranking works. And so the more volume you can generate, on things that typically didn't matter so much to SEO, like things like Reddit, as an example. I mean, LLMs pull so much from Reddit. And so if my wife thinks it's hilarious because she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm on the forum." She's like, "I don't think I would ever hear my husband say that, 15 years ago." But I'm on the forums. I'm just like, I'm posting content. I'm getting words out there. And to your point, it's a volume game for sure from that capacity. Another really interesting one is kind of adding AI friendly context to your web page. And why that's so fascinating is, and we've done the studies a couple times, you can actually, and this becomes a little bit more technically sophisticated. So I think the volume game is easy for someone who, without a ton of technical context. Um, if you're transitioning a little bit more with more technical context, you can actually add invisible text to web pages. Fascinating. And the coolest part about this, though, if you don't have a lot of technical skill set here, is you can ask the AI to help you generate that invisible context. So then it reads your web page better. But you essentially just add, and it some of the time doesn't even read in a way that like, you would normally read on a web page. It reads specifically for the LLM to understand it, and it's completely invisible. But when
Yeah,
the LLM,
isn't that what they call the schema?
yeah,
Okay,
it's definitely a type of schema.
right.
This one being an invisible schema.
Okay. Yeah, I learned about that because we were experimenting with that, and then somebody like pulls our we have a few blogs that pull like from our blog, and then we had to figure out a way how to hide that a little better so that they didn't see this like code all over the place because
Yeah.
they're just pulling the page itself. But it's like really interesting because yeah, we do like one blog a day, and we also after we write the blogs, we improve it with, you know, AI and then ask it a whole bunch of questions how it can get AI to read it and blah 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 blah. And I'm seeing like new techniques all the time, people posting videos. So it's interesting to see like if any of that really works. Plus, we put a plugin on our site that like invites the LLMs to the site, kind of.
So that was going to be my third one. That's a
Really?
great
That
one.
yeah, it's kind of interesting that, people don't know about all this stuff.
Yeah, you can. I mean, the third one there, and then the fourth one really. The third one is using AI to optimize for AI. A fantastic strategy because it's a big data problem. Right? Like the way the AI generates the ranking is solely based on big data. And so who's better to answer a big data question than the thing that is best optimized for big data, which is an AI. So use AI to help you understand the techniques to optimize for AI. Great strategy. And then the fourth one being, yeah, there are a ton of very interesting plugins, a lot of open source plugins that will invite LLMs, to your page. Will even help the LLM go through your page. So there's a lot of really cool ones there and directs it where it wants it to go. So yeah, I think that becomes the ability to actually, implement a plugin, I think becomes a little bit more technical, but for those who have a more technical skill set, I think it's a great option.
Yeah, if you're using WordPress, it's pretty easy just to pop it into your theme. But one of the things we started doing also is putting on every page on the site, every new page, we went back to a few other pages, is put FAQs.
It's a
And
classic.
and that's something that I know that the search engine is reading, and especially the AI is looking for those FAQs. And we hope that we answer the right questions.
Well, the FAQs are so important. I think it gets at kind of what I was talking about earlier with Reddit because it mimics conversational dialogue very well, which is one of the strongest ways that AI generates ranks up, products and services and websites, and then subsequently generates answers. Is did you or like if the AI sees the exact prompt, and that's why I was saying that's why I kind of started with the A/B testing, which is like if the AI sees the exact prompt that someone is asking, i.e say you're running a roofing business and the question becomes, what's the best roofing company to help me solve, this specific leak in my roof? And on your FAQs, you say, this is how we solve this specific leak on the roof. In the end, like word for word, the AI loves that, right? It's coming
Right.
to you and it's saying this guy is or this, person is answering my question exactly as I'm being prompted it. So yeah, so I think FAQs are a great source of that because they mimic natural language so well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at a conference last week, and there was a lot of talk about agentic commerce, and there's been a lot of talk about it, and talk about, in the world of like especially B2B where somebody's sending an invoice and then all of a sudden an agent's going to pay that bill. I'm not so sure people are ready to hand over their finances to AI and have robots answering their, paying their bills for them. What is your thought on that?
I mean, I think the more sensitive the information, the more comfortable people need to become with it. And obviously anything to do with finances is super sensitive. I think the flip side of that, which is the invoicing part of it, actually is people are doing it, right? They're using AI to invoice because it's kind of a slug and generating the invoice and the whole thing is annoying. And then the actual communication of did you receive the invoice, confirming the invoice, has the invoice been paid? That's actually all handled really well by an AI. So I think you can get pretty far without giving the AI access to your finances. I mean, even interesting, because I've seen the exact problem you described. If your bank, as an example, or wherever you deposit the invoice to, sends you an email that says that the invoice has been received, then you can have an AI that's scrubbing your email and it's saying, okay, I see that the bank sent me the email, and then it marks it that the invoice has been received. So you could get pretty far with that, and that we actually do design a lot of systems that intentionally circumvent sensitive information. Like a great one is, and going back to that email example, some people, I would say people are becoming more and more comfortable with using like a chatbot to answer emails for them. But some people are still uncomfortable with it. And so a really cool version is when it answers emails and then it automatically creates the draft for you. And then you have to press send, right? It doesn't press send for you. And so like
Right.
there's different ways to circumvent, I think, sensitivities around that. But yeah, it's very cool where it's going.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting things going on with AI. One of the big stories that came out this week was that a lot of companies like Microsoft, Meta, many others, there was a long list, cut back on their expenditure since Claude and OpenAI, so it kicked everybody off the agent platform that was abusing it and said, "Oh, you have to use this API." And then, surprise, surprise, guess what? You use 9 billion tokens in a month. And that happened to one of my friends. And I was like, "What does that mean, 9 billion tokens?" And he goes, "Well, that came out to like $7,000 to $8,000 a day." And he's like, he scrapped like his whole AI. Literally, he had to scrap it. And even when he tried to figure out like how to meter it back, he was still at $500-600 a day, and he's like, it's not worth it at that point, and that was using some weird AI like I never heard of before. So
Yeah.
so the AI is getting very expensive right now, the
Yeah.
token.
Well, it's interesting you say that. A project we've worked on is what we call the PLLM, the private LLM. And our basis, in part, for the project was there was a couple fold. There was security concerns. There was a variety of different things, but one of them was that it becomes no one is properly considering true token cost. Until very recently, and now everyone's like, "Oh my God, I'm spending so much money now that I have to pay for these tokens." Um, but no one was really considering it, and so when you have these LLMs developed by, of all these big players, the way the token usage is not optimized specifically for your problem set. It's optimized very generally, and as a result of that, it can do a lot, but it's not particularly efficient in what it does. So we actually developed LLMs, and you see actually, I think it was Bezos is now trying to do one for engineering and manufacturing with the thesis that like it's going to be developed specifically on engineering and manufacturing data as opposed to trying to take one of these broad-based ones. And obviously that's still a very large group. But we found if you even do it on tiny subsets of data, you can make the token usage super efficient. Now, does that mean you have to, ingest all your own data, train the LLM yourself? I mean, we took advantage of base open source LLMs, but then yes, we did train them, and so it's a little bit sophisticated. That being said, really did optimize for token expenditure.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are trying to figure that out now because I know a lot of developers and they're like, yeah, we have this big problem. And now all of a sudden, is it cheaper to just hire people versus pay for all these tokens? And they don't know. I think they're kind of like sitting there going, okay, well, what are we going to do? From that standpoint. And like when you look at cert, like I saw also like Shopify was going like all in on the open, like, oh yeah, all of a sudden we're going to be able to push all these Shopify stores into the Chat GBT. And then next thing you know, Chat GBT said, no, we're not doing that. I've seen like they just keep like they go, you see company go all in, and then the next thing they're pulling the plug on the project.
Yeah, I think it's to your point, right? Like there are real costs associated, and it's actually I'm glad you bring this up because it's why we got for enterprise. One of the reasons we got started was because a very long time ago, no one realized the complexity. In order to make these LLMs and AI actually work effectively, there's a lot of like internal and proprietary data that is necessary, depending on whatever your business does. Um, and no one really thought about that. They just saw these like very cool, flashy use cases. And that's why I was saying we're architects, is that they didn't think about like the infrastructure necessary to actually power that use case. And so I think Shopify and and ChatGPT, they also have a reconciliation where they're like the infrastructure is inefficient. Now, is it super cool and extremely kind of, the use case can be extremely versatile? Absolutely. But at some point, this is a business.
Right.
And that is not something that people really like to talk about these days. I mean, they're talking about it more, but it's not been a very, cool topic, but it's a business and you need ROI at some level. I mean, yeah, you can lose a lot of money, but at some level you need some ROI, and I think it's catching up to people.
Yeah, it's definitely catching up. I mean, I was at this conference and these developers that were there were like telling me like huge numbers, 20 grand, 250,000. And they're like, yeah, we spent all this money and now we have to go back and look and see like it's not sustainable, for their company to be doing all that. And so what things do you think businesses should be doing right now? I probably think I'm like a little bit way ahead because we kind of got invited to OpenAI and the beta test. So we started messing around with it quite a long time ago. And we use another tool called Search Atlas. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's a pretty cool tool. I've invited that guy, the owner, to come on my podcast. I can't get him to come on. Keep saying he's going to do it, but whatever. And these there's all these like tools out there, but I don't think, they're all like people ask me, oh, what's better, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude? I think you have to try them all out to see because I don't think they all do a good job of the same thing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair analysis. I mean, the most clear-cut example of that I've seen is we've worked with sports teams before, and they want to do, visual and graphic ingestion. And there are certain LLMs that like Gemini is the one that we ended up working with because we found it, no one really talks a ton about Gemini, but we actually for visual and audio, we actually really liked it. And so it clearly outperformed ChatGPT, heavily. So I definitely do think it depends on the use case. I would say try them all. And I would also say, which going back to what we were talking about earlier, your generative engine optimization for your business may even differ between LLMs. And so if you want, which just expands the pool of things you need to do, unfortunately. But yeah, not only are you now trying to target, it's not just Google anymore. Like each one of these major players, right? Like no one really cared if you did SEO for Bing, and no offense to Bing. Uh,
Or Yahoo, right?
yeah, yeah, really. I mean, I had a Yahoo back in the day. But these days it was all Google. But it's different now. I think there are major players. We'll see what happens with these big IPOs that are coming with some of these, LLMs and different AI providers, and how that affects this as well. But yeah, you can definitely be doing your AEO, GEO for a specific LLM.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot out there. It's like I remember when I first got in business in 2001, one of my friends brought his kid over and he goes, "Oh, my son's going to show you how to do this advertising online." And I'm like, "What?" And he went to this website, and it was a website where all the secondary search engines that don't exist anymore, Dogpile, Lycos, all these weird search engines, right? There was about 10 or 20 of them. And he says, yeah, you want to see how to advertise? He goes, I'm going to show you. He goes, people are on these search engines, but you only have to pay like 5 cents a click. At the time, Google was like 20 bucks. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I used to spend about 10 bucks a day.
That's fantastic.
Literally, and getting all, and we used to get a ton of traffic, but all those sites got bought up, by Google. They just bought everybody
Yeah.
and closed that thing down. But it was crazy. You would go on, and I learned little tricks. He's like, yeah. And it's funny, like Meta doesn't let you do that, or LinkedIn. Like, okay, I want to buy an ad, but I only want to advertise it starting at 7 o'clock at night. You can't do that. And that's what these things had, where you could have your ads run from 7 p.m. until like 6 a.m. And obviously, if someone's a restaurant owner or a business owner, when they get done with work, that's when they're searching around for stuff. Not searching around between 9 to 5, they're searching around at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And it worked very well for us back in 2001, early days. It was funny how that worked, and just everything changed, from 2000, even before that, I owned a restaurant. You really needed the newspaper, and when I first started in this business, you needed the yellow pages. And now it's all, first it was all Google, right? Now it's, and social media. Now it's like social media, Google. And now how do we attack all this, you know AIO, GIO, SEO, AI, boom, 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 all these LLMs, and how they're going to pick up our business. And hopefully we have the right things on the website that answer the right questions.
Yeah, and I actually think to that point, we are still in as it relates to AI. And again, it's not, you're not the newest kid on the block, but you're still a new kid on the block in the sense that there is an information asymmetry that exists, and there is arbitrage that can be taken advantage of by using these techniques. Exactly how, you were able to. And ultimately that's why Google changed it, right? Is because like anyone who knew the proper advertising times had such a information asymmetry and then a different return profile on their ads that it was such a it's kind of a cheat. It was like a hack. It was amazing. But and so I do think we are still in that phase with AI. The fact that we have so many different large players in the space is actually great for the average consumer who wants to take advantage of it. As things get consolidated, like you saw with Google and SEO, prices get consolidated, prices become stabler, and the ability to create arbitrage decreases. But now is definitely the time.
Yeah, I see Perplexities actually takes ad money from some. They have some. They're larger companies, so they're like there's paid advertising on there. I don't know if there's paid ads specifically in OpenAI. I look around when I search just to see, but I don't see anything really that gets marked paid. Do you think there'll be a day when you're buying, instead of buying ads on Google and Meta, you're buying ads from the LLMs?
Unfortunately, I do think there'll be a day. I mean, you kind of saw, in a very tumultuous trial between Musk and Altman, Musk's desire for OpenAI to have always been a nonprofit, intentionally to prevent that exact thing. Obviously, he lost.
Right.
So I do believe it is coming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of I mean, Google has to be seeing that their dollars are being the dollar spend on ads has to be going down
Oh,
because,
a ton.
yeah, because I mean, I think search is kind of split 50-50. It's interesting also what you can find out on Reddit. Like I went on there the other day to search about a company to see what the reviews were. They had some really bad reviews. And I was like, wow, they're not going to call these guys back. But yeah, it's really interesting from a payment processing standpoint. You got to watch out in these Reddit threads, even if no matter what you're selling or whatever, no matter what you're selling, a product or a service, a lot of the threads are controlled by a person and they have a bot in there and several moderators. So you can get kicked out of groups for posting your business name. So, you know, that's also kind of like doesn't give you give you the advertising bang, or you got to start your own Reddit, group,
Yeah,
which is
I think
probably not too easy today.
it's not building up the karma points and all the stuff you need to do to be able to do that. But I do think, which is very cool and something to be on the look for, which is, I mean, and for better or for worse, a lot of these chatbots are learning how to circumvent site regulations, and so they post in such a way where it actually a chatbot is less likely to get rejected by a group than a human is because the chatbot knows exactly what it can and can't say.
Right.
And so, for better or for worse, I would take advantage of that.
Yeah, one thing for sure is that I've seen a few people try to put some Reddit chat bots out there. And after, I never experimented with one, but I see a few of them already disappeared off the market because I think Reddit started to block them. And I will say LinkedIn has pretty much blocked most of the chat bots because the garbage messages that I would get kind of have gone away now.
Well, and I'll give you the funny thing about that too is that it's a chat bot, or I mean, whether or not you describe a security bot as a chat bot, but it's a bot that is looking for the bot for the other bot.
Right.
So Reddit and LinkedIn invested a ton of money in building these bots that can detect chatbots. So then now people are building bots that detect the bot that's detecting the chatbot. I mean, it's a classic back and forth. You see it in colleges all the time, right? Trying to figure out if if someone's cheating or not, or if they're using AI generated content. I'll never forget. I had a professor in after I graduated. This is years later, but I saw that they started doing hidden text. Within assignments. So if you copied the whole thing, it would also tell the LLM to produce a specific word in a specific place, and they're like, "Oh, you cheated."
You cheated. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I know. Like I interviewed two high school students about AI, and they have like a club to talk about AI with the students and everything. It was really interesting their take on AI and how it can help them get information about their homework. And even though the teachers tell them not to use it, they still use it a little bit. But I think the schools are, especially from a writing standpoint, are checking to see if someone's turning in homework typed up by, Chat GBT, etc.
Yeah, and it's a constant battle. And you've got a lot of people right now who are very concerned and vocal about the impact of it, and on the labor force and so on and so forth. But I think AI is a tool, right? Like we're saying with GEO and AEO, right? It's as what SEO was to a human finding a product, AI is the same thing. And you can, use that tool good, you can use that tool poorly, you can take advantage of the tool. You can learn to post your ads at between 6 p.m. and 12 at midnight to maximize your ad dollars.
Right.
Um, or you can't. And I think there is, it's a good opportunity though to get informed.
Yeah, Google doesn't allow that, like for you to pick your times,
No.
which is weird. So where do you see the opportunity for businesses in the next year to 2 years?
I think
Get ahead.
yeah, I think taking advantage of, the techniques that we've been describing, I think that you will still, not that your podcast doesn't have, the reach of the entire nation, but most people aren't actually thinking about this.
Right.
Most business owners here. So I think if you are taking advantage of these techniques, in some capacity, and again, it's a lot of it's AI itself, no matter what I mean, people say we're past the experimenting phase. I beg to differ. I think we are right in the middle of the experimenting phase. And so it itself is an experiment that people are trying to find the answer to, which just leads to you shouldn't be afraid to try. Experiment, at the very least, go on, one of your LLM providers and just prompt it a billion times about your business, and see what comes up and see where you rank or if you rank at all, and then try to take advantage of one of the techniques we talked about. They range from low to high time costs, and and see the results. And I think that's already going to get you ahead of your competitors.
So what do you think are the top 3 to 5 things businesses should be thinking about today? Like I tell you something that I did. I wanted to improve my Google business profile. So I fed it to OpenAI, and then it said, well, based on all these different things, this is what you should do. And it had me change the category. It had me do a whole bunch of stuff. And within 2 weeks, we already see improvement in that. So you don't have to like pay somebody to fix all that. But what do you think, like 3 to 5 things business owners should be thinking about today?
Yeah, so I think we'll do three and then I can keep expanding. The first one is like I've been kind of harping on the A/B testing. I think business owners should be going to these different providers and actually prompting them about their business, about their industry, about their business specifically, and seeing, where they show up, if they show up at all, and if they don't show up or they don't show up where they want to show up, who is showing up there, right? And that can give you a little bit of a hint as to what they're doing. So that's the first thing I would start with. The second thing I would start with is enrich your underlying context with trusted info. It's kind of exactly what you just described with your Google business profile. And if you want to use an AI to do that, all the more reason, because I think that will, add describing your influences, describing, where you be mentioned in the press, describing all those different things. I think, that's the only way the LLM understands you. It's very, it's very sometimes it's very confusing because we're used to marketing in such a holistic sense, and especially as you see kind of the integration and the Internet of Things, you get marketed fully holistically. In the case of the LLM, it really only stands you from what's on the internet. So make sure that context is very rich, and you can use an AI to do that. I love the way you use an AI. The third one is I would say I love adding AI friendly context in an invisible structured data schema. And so all that means is go to an AI and say, functionally, if you were to describe my business in a way where you would be able to read it, in the most efficient manner, and it doesn't have to be read by a human, how would you like to see it? And it may write a nice little write of your business, copy it, put it, and then make it invisible. And then the next time the AI comes and scrapes your page, it's going to look for that and it's going to love it, to be honest. And then the fourth one, which I think we talked about, is FAQs. And anything that looks like natural dialogue on your page is super powerful. And so asking questions and then providing answers, like the question and the answer is a very powerful thing. If you want to post, even I mean, I saw one company and it actually had some pretty good results, post transcripts with customers. And it was fascinating. Like they literally just had their customer service department transcribe all the customer service calls they were getting and then just posted them on their page. Now the AI has so much data to scrub from. It has so much actual natural language it's looking at. And so, yeah, start transcribing, customer service calls and just put them on your website.
Yeah, that would be pretty. I could transcribe some sales calls I have. Some of them would be pretty funny though. When people call up and ask about illegal products that they want to get credit card processing for.
That's hysterical.
Or yeah, like, they call up, well, or even just a discussion with a restaurant owner or someone with a retail store and how we have the transcripts because I have like, the transcript from my Zoom meetings from all of them. I save them all. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. That's pretty crazy. So if people want to find you, how do they find you, Tyler?
We are at www.4enterprise.com. And then it's pretty easy to contact us from there.
Okay. You're on LinkedIn also?
Also on LinkedIn, Tyler Hockman on LinkedIn. And yeah, we are, we love talking about this stuff. So happy to talk about it with anyone.
All right. Well, it was a great discussion today. What should you do? I hope if you listen to this, listen to it again because there are some great tips in here about what to do, how to do it. And some of it is not expensive to do. That I will say, it is not expensive. It can be, I wouldn't even say it's time consuming either. Once you figure out how you're going to accomplish it, it can be done. And any final words?
Thank you for having me on. This was a great conversation.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Tyler. Again, Tyler from 4Enterprise. This was a great discussion about what's happening on the internet, what's the difference between Google and what's going on with ChatGPT and all the other large language models and how they're affecting how people find your business and your product. So thanks for joining us. Peace out and carpe diem. Seize the day.